let's direct the question back to you, all right? What percent of a person is how he was born, and what percent is the way he was raised?
None of that is no one knows at all. You could say, you think it's funny? You think it's funny?
I think it's funny because there's
because
a huge
you got a little
body of research on this.
Yeah, huge body of research. You got a little stats. You read a little book, and that means that,
There are, and you're just going to say, that's just white man's baloney, huh?
Pretty much. Yes.
Okay, yes. There we go. Well,
white man's baloney. That's your whole career is white man's baloney. Your whole career is white man's baloney.
White man's baloney gave us physics. White man's baloney gave us astronomy. It gave us computers. It gave us jet aircraft. And it also gives us a certain amount of social science. But you can call it white man's baloney if you like.
No, but historically, what about glass? What about structures? What about buildings and skyscrapers and all of that stuff? Where does all of that stuff come from?
All white man's baloney, sure.
Oh, glass? Glass is white man? Blood plasma is white man? Traffic lights is white man? That's all white man?
It may be that Asians first came up with glass.
Do you know who Louis Latimer was?
Yes, you've got one of these books that claims that the lawnmower and the electric hairdryer was invented by a black man, or the traffic light was invented by a black man. You think that is such an overwhelming reality that science wouldn't happen without black people? Is that what you think?
No, I think that science wouldn't happen without humanity. I think science wouldn't happen without blacks.
It wouldn't happen without human beings, yes. But there could have been absolute zero blacks in the world in the Industrial Revolution,
and it would have happened. And can I tell you something too? Zero whites, the same would have happened, and zero Asians, the same would have happened. It all would have happened. Humanity,
You think so?
Yes, I do believe that everything would happen. Yes.
Let's imagine that no Arabs and no whites had come south of the Sahara. You think by now they would have figured out how to make nuclear reactors and jet airplanes?
I think they definitely would. And
you think they would?
And if not,
despite the fact they hadn't a single written language?
Or eventually they would learn how to figure things out. In history. What about the fucking wheel? Who invented the wheel?
We don't know, actually, but
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a white man.
Probably. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. It may not. The white man might not have been the first person to talk, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what? Look,
but you're talking about right now. We're in a certain time where right now blacks aren't doing as good as whites in
when are they
society at this. Oh, okay. How about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? How the hell do you know?
So?
200 years. How do you know? How about 500 years ago? But 500 years ago.
Let's come back 20 years from now and have this
you know what?
discussion.
Your philosophies are like a bad pop music song or a big hit film. It's like, look, right now, this is the hot song, but it's not a timeless song. So certain things happen right now, right at the moment, and it's so close to you that you go, this is fact, because right now, black people might not be doing as good as white people, so this means we are the superior being.
Wait. See, look, what I'm trying to explain to you is, before either Arabs or white people showed up south of the Sahara, let's go through the list again. There was no written language, no domesticated animals. There was no mechanical device, not even a hinge. There were no two-story buildings. Why do you think those people who'd been living in that state for hundreds of thousands of years, if living in that state for hundreds of thousands of years, if you left them for another 100,000 years, why do you think they would have invented language and discovered the calendar?
Because we didn't have the internet 20 years ago, because we didn't have planes 100 through time we didn't have rocket, we didn't go to space until a certain year. Through time you invent things and people invent things. That's what life is. That's what the world is.
My point is so
100,000 years later, yes, they would have invented everything too.
Okay, 100,000 years later? Well, okay, let's come back 100,000 years from now and see. My point is, not only have blacks failed to invent those things, they have failed even to
get credit for
how to
inventing a
deal
lot
with
of
them.
it.
Hold on. They have failed to even figure out how to operate them and deal with them and repair them, despite the fact that other people have invented them and presented them to them.
Who? A black man can't fix a machine, is what you're saying?
I'm talking about society. That's look at the all-black societies. Name a single one that manufactures even a motorcycle or a bicycle.
We already talked about
that's where
black
financing is.
Jared,
if you could get financing for something,
yes,
you don't
Mr.
just design it.
What's your next question?
Sorry.
No, you don't just design a fucking motorcycle with no money. You need financing.
No, we already talked about black
So
society.
that has nothing to do with superiority. That has to do with lack of financing.
All right.
What do you mean, all right?
I don't want to talk about black societies anymore.
Let me ask Jaron something. What have you done in your life that's anywhere of importance? You have a couple nerd Ku Klux Klan members who listen to you, and that's your whole accomplishment in life. And you take stats from books and go, "This is my accomplishment."
We're not here to insult each other.
No, but I can't insult somebody if I'm having a fucking debate. This is the way I do it. So I want to know, what have you accomplished in your world that makes you a superior being or better than any black person that I know? What have you accomplished in your life?
That's anecdotal. He's not saying he's superior. He's talking about millions of people.
That's a completely silly question. I'm not saying I'm better than any particular person.
Yeah, he's
We're
talking about
group averages.
Yeah, group averages of right now. No, we're talking about group averages of right now.
Yes.
That you're
group
saying
averages the last 1,000 years.
No, but there's no proof of the last 1,000 years. These statistics you're doing are not from the 1,000. How do you prove something from 1,000 years ago? That's a bullshit statistic right there. We have proof of this from 1,000 years that IQs weren't as smart for these people, that people.
Okay, let's
manipulate facts.
dial it down a notch here.
No, but it's a white supremacy argument to manipulate facts. So he has an argument. For thousands of years, they have been inferior in the mental.
I think Jared is saying that for the past 1,000 years, when you look at white accomplishments and Asian accomplishments and you mirror them with black accomplishments, there's a very disparate amount of results.
Okay,
exactly.
that is what you claim, but if you do some research and historically look up the history of blacks and Indians and non-white people and compare it to what whites have accomplished, there is a whole lot of great things that have been accomplished in history. The
All
greatest
you really
men
got
in
is
history.
Egypt, and we're not sold that they're black.
The Arabs did some pretty interesting things.
Oh, you're better than Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi or these people.
Gandhi was a pedophile. Anyway, please.
No, why you shake your head? Why do you shake your head?
Because
We're off
comparing me with Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi or Michael Brown makes no sense at all.
Of course it does.
It's a completely meaningless, utterly meaningless conversation.
I don't give a fuck if it's one person.
Okay,
I don't give a fuck if it's one person. It's not one person. Hold up. One thing. You say it's one person. No, there are millions of black people who have higher IQs than you, me, and Gavin.
I don't know if anyone's arguing that.
Millions. So to go, it's one person because you named one fucking person. No, they're more successful. They're more successful.
I drew a graph that showed plenty of blacks smarter than everyone.
More successful.
Yes, of course.
More money.
There's a difference between general and universal.
Who have had more effect on people's lives than all of you.
Contradict the pattern. That's general.
Yeah, but what is the importance of your little pattern if you're not having an influence on the world?
Question. That's a great question. And the reason it's important is when you say every race is exactly the same, right? You go, well, wait a minute. Why are all these mathematicians Asian? And then you say, well, it doesn't make sense that so many mathematicians are Asian, so we need affirmative action programs, and we need to spend tax dollars to equal the score. And Obama today is talking about diversity housing. He's saying we're all the same, so why aren't you people living with these people? Let's push them all together. And when I first met Jared, I was impressed to hear that he doesn't want anyone to be forced to do anything. His thing is, if multiculturalism is so great and we're all so equal, then why would the government have to spend money to enforce it? Why do we need affirmative action? Why do we need all these diversity programs? If everyone's the same, just let it happen. Why are you trying to counter something?
Well, that's an easy answer because 50s, 60s, all it was hold you're an N-word, you're inferior, you have no right to have our superior education. So yes, it takes some time to have a black man and a black family to even.
I'm very glad you brought that up because that was my next point. The common argument with the left about black failure is we've had a 400-year head start.
True.
And blacks are doing worse than whites because they were held down as recently as, the 60s.
And not even just the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Racism never stopped there. You act like, once civil rights happened, it all disappeared and it was an even playing field for these black men. And you act like racism doesn't exist in America, but Jared, you exist in America. So with men like you, racism exists, and you're saying 40% of our country agrees with you, which I don't believe that statistic.
I said probably about 25 to 30% of white people think that on average whites are smarter than blacks, and probably
that doesn't mean better.
But that's a fake statistic that he made up in his little white supremacist head. It's not real. That's not real. He's like, I say 30. Look, I could say this. I could say 90% of black people are smarter than you. I can say that and go.
Okay, what percentage do you think?
Nobody fucking knows.
What percentage of Americans believe that Asians tend to score higher on IQ tests than blacks?
Yeah, but
what percentage?
People think that they score higher on a fucking IQ test?
Yeah.
That is proof of superiority because they score higher on an IQ test.
No one's talking about superior. No. You're the one who brought in the word superior.
It is superiority. When you say that...
I don't like smart guys. Jared's one of the only smart guys I like. They tend to be boring.
But see, Mr. McInnes asked a very important question. What percentage do you think of people living in America, white, black, brown, purple, suspect that Asians score higher than any other group on IQ tests? What would you reckon that figure is?
Yeah, but we don't know the statistic. You can make up a statistic and just pretend like you know it because that's what you do. You make statistics for a living.
I don't. You think I concoct stuff? You think I tell lies?
Yeah, you do. You make up numbers. It's not true. 30 to 40% of black people.
You asked him to guess. He guessed.
I didn't ask him to guess. You fucking idiot.
No, you said how many do you think? And he said I would assume. He never said 30 to 40.
I didn't say take a guess how many fucking black people think. No, nobody ever said that.
I said that would be my suspicion. I've seen a poll some years ago that suggested that about 25% of black people agreed that blacks were less intelligent than whites on average.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I read a statistic. RA was interrupting you.
I read a statistic today. I could pull it up. Now, is it an accurate statistic? It says if you take a black man and put and white people and you raise them in the same thing, I could grab the article and it's acting like it's fact. It says that the IQ test by the black person is usually 10% higher than the whites. Now, I can take that and pretend it's a fact.
Well,
and use that during my argument.
Show me the data. I want to see the data. I want to see the study.
I see. The thing is, the study is acting like it's a factual study, just like you do. So, because nobody can prove this thing.
Look, so if the data don't agree with you, then the data just have to be wrong. Tell me something.
But all the data is guessing, so you can't act like these data.
It's not guessing. Science is not guessing.
Okay, this is getting pedantic. Can I bring up a whole new angle here?
Yes, it is guessing.
Please do.
It is guessing.
So a common refrain from the left.
You called it science?
Is that whites do more drugs than blacks, but blacks tend to get arrested more than whites, and their presence in jail is obviously shockingly disproportionate to their presence in the population, and a huge number of those cases are drug related.
Yes.
Why do blacks get arrested more than whites when they do less drugs?
First of all, now Mr. Thorburn is going to doubt that this could possibly be true because it's based on actual science and studies.
Science.
But so see here,
science fiction.
Oh yeah,
Rod Serling. You're like the Rod Serling of white supremacy. I want to fucking interrupt. I can't.
Take a black and a white population.
Don't tell me what the fuck to do. First of all,
what drugs have you taken in the last 6 months? And then you actually do a urine test, or you take hair samples, and you can detect what drugs they've taken. Depending on the sample involved, blacks are probably anywhere from 3 to 6 times more likely to lie lie and claim that they haven't taken drugs. So the idea that blacks and whites take drugs at equal rates or that whites take drugs at higher rates than blacks is based on what? It's based on self-reporting. You ask people, do you take drugs? Don't you take drugs? Well, it turns out that blacks are much more likely to lie about that. So the claim that there is no difference in drug-taking rates is, first of all, wrong. Yeah, another reason why blacks are more likely to be in the pokey on account of drugs is because they're arrested for other crimes much more frequently than whites. And when you arrest a guy, one of the first things you're going to do is search him for drugs. If he's got drugs on him, he's going to be charged for a drug offense as well as for robbery or for car theft or whatever it was. Those are the two things that most probably account for the disproportionate number of blacks in prison for drug offenses.